40 years ago this fall, our founders came together to make sure that people in our part of North Carolina would never go hungry. Today, that commitment is stronger than ever. Our leaders, our staff, our volunteers, we share the same vision: to help people when they need it and work to ensure that they don't. This is Path to Ending Hunger, the podcast for the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. Today, we'll look at how the Friends of the Food Bank help us serve nearly 600,000 people in 34 counties.
Hello and welcome to Path to Ending Hunger. I'm Amber Rapinta. So this is a number that everyone here at the Food Bank knows all too well. In the 34 counties that the Food Bank serves in North Carolina, more than 750,000 people deal with hunger. So on this episode, we're going to find out who those people are and what is specifically being done to help the more than 750,000 people that are dealing with hunger and food insecurity. So our guests right now are Milagros Guzman, an outreach coordinator for the Food Bank. Milagros works with people from 9 counties, from Johnston County, right down the road here, we're in Raleigh, all the way to Duplin County, which is way down east in the state. Also with us is Jessica Slider Whichard, Director of Communications for the Food Bank. So thank you both for being here. I want to start with you, Milagros. Give us a 30-second description of what exactly an outreach coordinator does here at the Food Bank.
A high-level description of what we do is we partner with agencies in our counties. And what that means is we do trainings, we help them with their capacity and building capacity. We also help them with food safety training, which is super important when it comes to giving out food in the community.
Because we had talked about this earlier as well. It's not just handing out that food. It's making sure that you're handing out food that is at the right temperature, because there's been a movement to a healthier food and a variety of food, and sometimes that means more perishable food as well. So is that some of the training that you all have to do and food safety protocols?
Yes, exactly. We also look at what they need and how we can help them. For example, we ask them if they need equipment. So we also offer refrigerators, other things that they would need in order to have a successful food pantry and distribution. We also look at any training. So along with food training, there are also other trainings that we offer as well.
Yeah, it sounds like that it's a production line that needs a lot of infrastructure, and you all are their guide through that, because this operation you have here is tremendous. So you've got it down pat. So I want to talk with some of the organizations that you work with specifically, the Episcopal Farm Workers, Mexican, as well as the Mexican Guatemala consulates. Tell us about those partnerships and how they benefit the people that you serve as well.
In North Carolina, we are seeing a rising number of Latinx community members. We also are wanting to help that community. We've done quite a few things to help. Last year, the Food Bank did a race equity training with staff, and it's something that we're also doing this year with our partner agencies as well. And the reason why it's important is because, especially now during the pandemic, the Latinx community, as well as Black community here in North Carolina, are being affected more so than other communities. Our partnerships with a Mexican, with the Episcopal Farm Workers, and others are giving us that link in order to help and be impactful in the work that we're doing. Other things that we're doing, specifically the Food Bank is doing, is we have what we call our Food Finder. This is a site on our website that you can go and find a pantry near you, which would be one of our partners. This year we did that all in Spanish. And so that means is for someone in North Carolina who needs to help and does not speak English, they can go quickly on the website. It's foodbankcenc.org/comida, which means food, and they can look for a pantry right in their zip code. Those are the things that I think that are most impactful for the community. And we're doing our best and learning as we go.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you said you guys did training. I know that in the news, there's a lot of focus right now on racial disparities, inequities. But it sounds like you said you all trained about this and made it a focus long before this was making national headlines.
Yes, and I'm proud to say that, we're still learning, and there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to do, but we're taking action items. One thing about the website that I think that is important to remember is that not only are people able to look for food pantries and other distribution sites in their language, it also gives us the data, because when we look at our numbers, the 20% of traffic to our food finder site is to the Comida site. So that's 500 individual visits to that site. And that's alarming. I think that, and the fact that the food bank is taking that as a goal in coming into to the next fiscal year and looking how ways we can better improve what we're doing and be more impactful, shows our commitment not only to the communities that we have been serving for the last 40 years, but also the new communities that are being building here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Really quickly, I want to get to this because you mentioned the Latinx community, especially in Eastern North Carolina. What are the specific needs? It sounds like you're meeting that need with that on your site, just the specific Comida site, but are there more specific needs that public should know about?
Yes, one of the things is not just having the site translated, but we're also working with other Latinx partner agencies. And what that means is having, we had our first orientation in Spanish, where I onboarded a community in Selma, North Carolina. We also are doing translated documents so that we can not only meet the need of the Latinx community in the sense of information, but also it builds community, builds partnership between the food bank and those agencies. One more thing is that when we work with, working with the Mexican consulate, they were able to partner us up with a Mission Foods, which is they make tortillas and they make certain items that are popular within the Latinx community. And what's important about that is not just, more food sourcing, but also we're sourcing food that's culturally sensitive. And we know that partnership is going to grow. So we're happy that we're working not only with the Mexican and Guatemalan consulate, but also with the other organizations here in North Carolina.
Well, when we come back, we're going to look at how the food bank is building solutions. That's one of the ways that you're doing it in those partnerships, particularly, though, underserved communities, with our guests, Milagros Guzman and Jessica Slider Whichard, when we come back.
Hey there, this is Vivian Howard from the PBS show A Chef's Life and Somewhere South. Growing up in Deep Run, North Carolina gave me an appreciation for local agriculture and traditional Southern food. But when I returned to Kinston to open a restaurant, it was clear to me many were struggling to find enough to eat on a regular basis, which is why I support the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. They're working every day to nourish people and build solutions to end hunger. And they place a priority on distributing healthy and fresh food, including produce from right here in Eastern North Carolina.
To find out how you can help, please visit our website, foodbankcenc.org.
Welcome back. We are talking with Milagros Guzman and Jessica Slider Whichard at the food bank here. So Jessica, we want to talk about more marginalized communities. I know that Milagros spoke a lot about the Latinx and Hispanic communities in North Carolina. Let's talk about the other marginalized communities that the food bank's trying to reach.
Sure. And it's something that when COVID-19 came around and we started talking about the folks who were going to be made most vulnerable, we were able to look internally and see how that applied to us. And really what came to light is our senior citizens being a really highly community that's been marginalized. So these are folks who have health risks. They sometimes don't have transportation. They're living on a fixed income. So those are some other partnerships that we've taken a look at to try and figure out how to address. Working with Meals on Wheels, who can do home deliveries, figuring out how to adjust our own federal nutrition programs to be able to get that food to people in their homes instead of having them congregate. That was kind of a big one that we initially tried to figure out how to help support.
Yeah, it's one I think that a lot of times doesn't come front of mind. So I'm sure it's also something that this health crisis has helped to spotlight as well. Part of the food bank's mission is to build solutions and empower communities along with that outreach that you talk about. So what does that mean for the organization's future? Which the future, it might have changed with COVID, right?
Well, we want to ensure that we are finding solutions to hunger. We don't want to have to be here 40 years from now. And Milagros really touched on that. Part of the things that we want to do is build trust with some of these communities that we can help support and build those solutions in. They don't need our power, but we can share the resources. We can share kind of the light that has been shined on the food bank for 40 years to really help show what could be possible in the future. And that's something that we really want to highlight.
Mm-hmm. Does it impact who you partner with? Because we've talked about there's more than 900 partner agencies that the food bank works with for that outreach, for whether it's specific communities from seniors to children to the Latinx community. Now this education piece of the puzzle comes in. So does it make it more strategic for those partnerships for you all?
I think it does make it more strategic. We've talked about healthcare partnerships. Another area is education. Where can we partner with schools to try and help get food there and kind of remove some of the stigma from breakfast and lunch programs? It really is broadening who we're able to partner with, where it makes sense, where we can get into kind of those root causes of hunger, and really be a part of the conversation, from a holistic standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the response to crisis that the food bank does as well, because when you talk about building solutions, I guess I have a question about, let's say we have a lot of hurricanes and weather impacts us here in North Carolina a lot. Is that something that you have a different solution for? Because there's a lot of challenges to outreach when you're dealing with a natural disaster and trying to still feed folks that need it.
Sure. I think what we've seen is that it really showcases the need for that balance of emergency and urgent food relief while trying to build solutions at the same time. So when we think about things like natural disasters or this pandemic or even the government shutdown, it really highlights the inequities that exist. It really highlights how many people who may be working but are living paycheck to paycheck who need that food immediately from us, but what are those policies that we could get ourselves involved in from a conversational standpoint or from a standpoint of new partnerships to play the long game, to make sure that, if this happens again, we don't have that urgent, emergent need, that maybe people are able to have some more funds in place, for crises like these, or know where to go early on to be able to prepare their families.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to the work that you all do here, and you have to be so quick and nimble to respond. I wanted to touch lastly on the COVID response, because you had mentioned something very interesting. Volunteers had to be stopped. And this is a nonprofit, a tremendous nonprofit. We hear right now behind us, if you're hearing noises there, that it's a working warehouse. They're loading the food in and out. We're sitting in an education kitchen here where you all outreach to teach people about food. But when you lost all those volunteers when COVID hit, just tell us how you all were able to keep moving.
Sure. So volunteers normally double our staff. So we are absolutely reliant on them to, take down bulk items that we may receive donated into family-sized things. So what we did was have to turn our operation to buying more of those products. So we were able to find prepackaged boxes that volunteers wouldn't have to touch. We were able to find things that were already in the community so that we wouldn't have to rely on volunteers to truck them out there. And it took a lot of resources to be able to do that. I'm very thankful for the support that we had from the community that allowed us to be nimble in that way.
Mm-hmm. And you get a lot of community support. When we return, we will talk about the impacts on those who do hunger relief work, and we will tell you how you can get involved.
The Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina has provided food for our friends and neighbors facing hunger in 34 counties for 40 years. Simply put, the Food Bank works every day to provide food to people in need while building solutions to end hunger in our communities. Through a network of more than 900 partner agencies such as soup kitchens, food pantries, and shelters, they nourish families, children, and seniors living with food insecurity. Through education and programs, the Food Bank empowers communities to overcome hunger, creating an environment where all North Carolinians thrive. Find out how you can help by visiting foodbankcenc.org. That's foodbankcenc.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Path to Ending Hunger. A lot of people who work in nonprofits, it's a labor of love. It is a passion. It is a calling. So how do you both keep your passion without being consumed by it? Because it seems like the need is just so great, and sometimes it can really try on your heart. How do you avoid that?
I think for me, it's knowing that a lot of our strategies are starting to work. So ahead of the pandemic, we saw our numbers between 2018 and 2016, the numbers of people facing food insecurity had gone down. And so knowing that those pieces are in place and just continuing those partnerships and outreach and the conversations around root causes, around equity, it's working. And even though we've seen this spike now, because of the pandemic, we've got the tools in place, and we can just keep utilizing them and keep making progress. And that's what's helping me.
Mm-hmm. The victories are in the numbers for you. Of course, COVID has thrown a curveball on so many levels and so many industries. So we're going to learn from that. But how about you, Milagros, as well? How do you, I guess, feel that this doesn't, you don't get discouraged? Stay optimistic.
Well, I am optimistic because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and yet we have so many folks out there in North Carolina doing the work. And that's what keeps me going. Every day I talk to my partner agencies, and they'll tell me about what they're doing, and they're excited, they're proud of what the work they're doing, and the fact that I have a part in that makes me feel really good, and it keeps me going.
Yeah. I teach my children, focus on the good, focus on the people helping. And that has been a huge part of getting a lot of people through this. And you all do such amazing work helping. Now, if someone's listening and they want to get involved with the food bank or some of the partner agencies, tell us what they need to do.
We are still accepting volunteers. We're taking safety precautions really seriously, but if folks want to be able to give their time, they can go to foodbankcenc.org/volunteer. Monetary support, food support is always helpful. But I would say the number one thing really is the advocacy, talking about, the fact that hunger really can impact anybody, and that resources are out there, but these are issues that we can actually address and that we can change in our country. And talking about hunger relief in that way, I think, is really important in this community.
Mm-hmm. Milagros, and for you, we talked about spreading the word, letting people know it's okay if you need help. Take it. It's there. It's what you're here for, right?
Yes, and one thing to go along with what Jessica said is that talking to your neighbors about hunger is important. Voting in mind, thinking about hunger is important, and we're here to help.
So for you, do you feel like the more we talk about it, the less of a stigma there is in taking the help?
Yes, I think that we bring hunger to the forefront, and I think it's important, not only for talking about it with our neighbors, but also having it in mind when it comes to voting. Advocacy is important. Si usted necesita ayuda, pueden ir a nuestro Food Bank Facebook y ahí pueden encontrar la link para ir y encontrar ayuda para ustedes.
Mm-hmm. There's help on so many platforms from the food bank. I am not a native Spanish speaker, but I'm pretty sure that's what we want people to know. And there is no shame or fear if you need help. There really isn't. And that's what you're here for.
That's absolutely right. We want to be able to take the stigma out of it. We want to build that trust and make sure that if folks need the resources, that they're here and they're available and it's okay to use them.
Yeah, well, more than 750,000 people are dealing with hunger and food insecurity, and we are so thankful that you all are here to help to solve the problem. Part of the food bank's mission is serving our communities, and you do it so well and on so many different levels. So we thank you for what you do to ending hunger. So thank you both, Milagros Guzman and Jessica Slider Whichard. I can't thank you enough for being our guest today. And thank you so much for listening. I'm Amber Rapinta.
This has been Path to Ending Hunger, the podcast for the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. Thank you for listening and for caring. At the Food Bank, our doors are always open. Perhaps one day they won't have to be. Until next time. To find out how you can help, please visit our website, foodbankcenc.org.